we've talked about it before, and people are using AI in their writing, and people are publishing books with AI in their writing. How do we know? Because they're leaving prompts in them. But the real question here is, do readers care? Do readers care that there are prompts left in? Do readers care that a book is written by AI, assisted by AI? And the answer may surprise you because we don't know. It kind of depends on who you talk to. So let's talk to some people. Beatrice, start us off.
I mean, do I say if I care or
Well,
do I
I
say if
mean,
I think
I
people
think
care?
it's pretty well established that the three of us care, and we preferably do not want generative AI written books. However, we are not necessarily representative of the reading community at large. We represent a group of people who are generally opposed to generative AI in their writing, but is that even the majority of readers?
What I can say is that, like, I can make an argument from like very logical, like punctual, very specific reasons in which I believe AI written books lack in quality when you like put them against human written counterparts. So that way, people that are still trying to figure out if they care or not have like a little bit of like an extra argument to consider other than all of the moral and ethical issues that we talk about and are being talked about constantly. And this is mostly, I think the argument is a little bit different depending on the length of the book, if it's a short story or novella, and there are arguments for all of them. Whenever you are creating a story, especially if it's a long novel, if it's something that has more than one character, that has plot threads, that has to have some consistency. AI really cannot dominate consistency right now in full. As far as I know AI is developing very, very quickly, so that can change literally in 5 minutes. But one of the things that I have seen from people that create books that are especially entirely AI, they just put a prompt and then basically kind of just like tweak prompt so it keeps generating stuff again and again until they reach like a specific word count. They have to do it with stuff that is very short and usually stuff that is very one-dimensional because it can get out of control very quickly. And what I have seen, because unfortunately I have had to see a lot of this tutorials on how to get famous writing AI books because I wanted to understand the process that people were following. So I knew like what the intent was and everything. And again, all of this, I saw this like a month ago, so all of this could have evolved. Uh they can't they can't really manage like plot threads, multiple characters and stuff in a way that is entirely consistent. So it's the whole thing about like, hey, AI hallucinates stuff that we saw with the newspaper. We have seen since it started that it's very hard for it to grasp every single detail in its memory. And while for an author, it also will be hard.
So,
Yeah.
so I was gonna say, I don't think there's any argument that most AI books are going to pale in comparison to an actually human written book. I think the question is, do the readers care?
I mean, I care if I read a shitty book.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of my point. Like, if I am spending money in writing some if I'm not spending money because most of the books that I read I just lend from the library.
Hmm.
If I just get a book and I am spending my time, which for me is more valuable than money, honestly. My time is currency because my time is very non-existent. If I'm spending so much of that consuming something, anything for my own sake, for my entertainment, for whatever, I want it to be worth the time. Like it's going to
Hmm.
pale, therefore it's probably something that was human written is
Yeah.
more worth the time. That's kind of like where the whole like the quality is gonna be lesser and blah 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 and kind of like try to explain that because we have talked before in our reviews episode of like how we feel whenever it's a book that we finish and we didn't really like it or like a book that we had to stop in the middle. I see that coming way more frequently the more that AI books are
Hmm.
in the market, even if we don't really see immediately a prompt and we can't determine that it's AI. If I am reading a book that is lacking consistency, the pacing is weird, the quality is low, I'm not going to continue want to read things by that author. I'm not going to want to continue reading the book. I'm not going to recommend the book. I'm just going to return it to the library. Dio will too. Look at him. He's so upset with AI written books right now. And I'm not saying every single book that has those characteristics is AI written, obviously, but I do feel that those characteristics are going to be very prevalent in a lot of books that are AI generated.
Yashie, what do you think? Because you and I have talked about this a bit, obviously off camera. So,
Um, okay, so we've had multiple incidents that have happened over the course of a few weeks that kind of proves yes and no as to whether or not readers actually care. So, like, when I was asked this question, I explained that it's impacted primarily by external factors. So, like, many readers that aren't authors are often relying on social media in order to help us kind of discover like these new indie book recommendations because let's face it, indie authors aren't heard as much. They're not marketed as much. So we need to market on social media. And so, they go on and they're like, oh, what might be an amazing read like after their last book? And I say that so wistfully. Oh. Anyways, so like social media is kind of impacting our like thought process when it comes to whether or not we should actually buy a book. So like let's say a reader has a stance against AI prior to like when they're searching for book recommendations, your algorithm is going to match your interests, especially if you've been like feeding it that you're interested in this content. So you're going to see more content based on whether or not this book was written by AI, and if it was, the reader is most likely going to say, like, never mind, I'm not going to read that. It looked good, but I'm not going to read it because it's AI. And I've seen that happen more often than usual. Um, if the reader may not have like a stance against AI, they don't really consume the content regularly. Let's say even there's like a mix of whether or not they consume like anti-AI stuff or pro-AI stuff, there's likely not going to be like a heavy bias towards one side. Hopefully. It depends on the algorithm at that point. So they're likely not going to know or care for the time being. And I would say like as time goes on and they develop their stances, that's when we'll see a more shift in whether or not they care. And like if the reader supports AI, they will not care at all. I've seen some readers actively seek out like AI written books just to support AI creators as opposed to real authors. So at that point, it's just kind of like, okay, maybe it's a yes or no there. And my defense is like we've seen the Casey Crown incident. There's still a lot of readers that put out like 5 stars for her stuff. There was another author recently who just got outed for leaving a prompt, and people are still rating that 5 stars. So it's kind of like how it, we can't find a like definitive stance on it because it's so mixed. And I feel like I'm never going to get that stance yet because I'm regularly consuming anti-AI content because that's where my job is, which is really funny because I gave my life to AI and now I am against it. Ha, irony. Um,
You
but
joined them so you could destroy them
yeah,
from the
exactly.
inside.
But it's really funny because when I was graduating, that's most of my class. Like we're all anti-AI. So
Proud.
anyways,
well,
hope for
just
the future.
just to piggyback on that, there was a study done recently, and this was more in the vein of marketing, but it was University of Southern California, uh, Bo University, and George Washington University did a study that essentially the less you know and understand about AI, the more likely you are to use it or accept it. I believe it was something like people unfamiliar with AI are up to 31% more likely to use it because they see it as magical. And that doesn't necessarily directly translate to reading, but I think it does show that for people who spend less time, like you were saying, engaging in the anti-AI or any kind of AI discourse, they're more likely to use it, more likely to accept it. So let me pose a question, and Rosetta, you can answer this first because you haven't gotten to talk yet. Um, do you think people are more willing to accept AI written stuff, books, short stories, whatever, because typically people are producing them at a rapid pace and posting them for minimal cost. So people are willing to read them, and if they suck or they just aren't as coherent as a book you would like, they don't care because it was $1.99. It was 99 cents. It was free.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the cheapness of the books, in cost and in quality, makes them seem like super accessible. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm reading this thing and it's coming out and I get a new one every day. Um, and the thing is, a lot of readers are conditioned to read something new in a series or something like every day or every week or something because of how like comics are published online, like webcomic series. Or like fan fiction, you'll get people will do weekly updates to their stories. And so we're conditioned to like that kind of weekly update, suspense kind of thing. And so if you have a book coming out every week by your favorite AI author, you're gonna keep purchasing and keep reading. And because we live in such a fast-paced world, it's like enticing to people who either know nothing about AI or like AI to just pick up that
Hmm.
basically free book. Because 99 cents to a lot of people isn't a big deal.
Hmm.
Um, and they're not going to ask for a refund of 99 cents if they didn't like it. So,
Yeah, I mean a lot of them are no refunds anyway, so it, it's interesting. Just I don't I honestly think that there are people out there who if a book is outed for being completely AI written, whether it be a major book or a minor book, that is going to stir interest and people are going to read it specifically because it was AI, which then we will get to the opposite end where someone will say, oh, yeah, this book was AI written and they wrote it themselves just trying to get the publicity. So,
and that's a big problem because you're false
yeah,
advertising.
I mean, that's
And
false advertising either way, unless you're like, yes, this was written by AI and it was written by AI.
right. But it's a problem because then people are associating the things that they took their time and energy into, saying, well, if I want any attention, I have to say that this was AI written, which I feel like is a disservice to their work and the time they put
Yeah.
into that work.
So I'm not necessarily saying that is where things are going, but I think potentially the market could shift that way at some point. Right now, I mean, especially in the social media that we exist in, we see a lot of people like, yes, I will never use AI because AI can't drink 4 cups of coffee and cry in the corner while writing 10 words. There
Yeah.
there is that human aspect, and along lines of what Beatrice was saying, I do believe that AI will struggle with certain types of stories, especially if you just say, "Hey, write me a story about this." There, there's only, I mean, we all know that AI is essentially plagiarism, but there's only, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Essentially, if you're trying to convey an emotion and something that is trying to convey that emotion for you has 15,000 inputs of how to convey that emotion, the result of that is going to be not particularly clear. It's going to try to put all 15,000 into one sentence, one paragraph, and I don't know if it will get the message across the way it should.
I also feel like generalizing every single use of AI in like related to writing is also making it a little bit hard to like determining like a stance on the public in general. Because, for example, mine was thinking about like, oh, if there's something that is 100% written with AI, then the struggles are going to come in. But we do know, because people have said that there are authors writing only portions of their books with AI. Maybe they only write specific descriptions. Maybe they do the whole, I just brainstorm, so it's not bad. Like, it's a very different, like, people that use AI for writing, they use them in very different percentages. And I think that makes it even harder to determine not only whether something is AI or not, but to what grade a person would like it or even care. Like, if there's, for example, I'm gonna do like the opposite end of what I said originally. If something is like, someone asks for like whatever ChatGPT to come up with an idea or to come up with an outline, and then the person writes it, is that considered AI, or is that
Yeah.
considered like it? Would I know? I wouldn't know, because at the end of the day, the person wrote it. What if we get in the middle? What if someone has a short story
Hmm.
and then they feed a paragraph into ChatGPT and ChatGPT converts the same paragraph into five? At what
Yeah.
point is this gray mode of AI usage considered AI
I,
written or not?
I think you're touching on a very interesting point because, like, we even discussed it in one of the other episodes. CJ, who's one of our web developers, is of the opinion that if AI maybe helps you create an idea, but then you transform it into something of your own, he finds that acceptable. Um, a lot of other people don't. So it's going to it's not so much a yes, you used AI or no, you didn't use AI. There's that gray area, and I think that's where people are getting hung up because it's like, all right, well, did it just help you outline your story? Is that okay? Did it re I think the part where people are really getting hung up where it says, oh, here, I rewrote this for you in a the style of whatever author
That is the worst case
or
scenario, in my
Yeah.
the
opinion.
KC Crowd one of here I made your main character sexier or something like that. That's the and I know that was our kind of original one here. The where it's like, all right, well, you can't you're the romance writer and you can't make
You have one
your hunk
job.
a hunkier. Like what are you doing here? So
Well, and one of my concerns with asking AI to rewrite something is, and I'm sure I've said this before, but like dialects, it can't write dialects, and so it's going to
I
either turn
I
out
think
very
that
much like a
might be
caricature or it's
I
just
think
going to look
that's
wrong.
no longer true. I think it
Yeah,
can.
Does it now? Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. I think I mean, especially if you feed it the correct prompts. Like I think
Yeah.
it can.
But I feel
Um,
like at the same time, it's like you're saying with emotions, that depending on what AI you're using, it might have been fed so many inputs for what
mhm,
like a New York accent is gonna sound
yeah,
like that you're gonna get a New Jersey
maybe.
and something else in there as well. But that depends, I guess, on what you're using. But my concern with that is still that AI doesn't use those dialects responsibly. Just because it can do it doesn't mean it does it right, which,
I think
can be a problem.
I believe that the scariest thing of just in general the AI usage and writing is that it is not a, and Yashie, you know way more about this than I do. It's not a secret that every single current like Gen AI model that exists out there is developing at a very, very rapid pace. And things that maybe it's not great at right now, it might be great at tomorrow.
Mhm,
And that's what's so scary about it, because one of the things that is like a little bit easier to see that rapid pace development has been with AI image generation. At first, we all joked about all the fingers and all the crazy stuff, and now you can see the AI generated influencers that have video that have like they are trying on clothes. Like, I saw a post of someone saying that they generated an AI image and like showing like a little screenshot with ChatGPT. They generated an image. They grabbed a picture of a clothing article and then put it in ChatGPT and they were like, grabbed exactly this image and put this shirt into this model and we're able to do it. And it's been just like 5 years, even less. And that is the same way that they develop as well with like writing and conversational and all of that. We didn't have a couple of days ago the same like scary conversational aspects of like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini that now like when I'm using my phone just wakes up and tries to talk to me and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
And
Gemini needs to stop doing that. If it
it's
could,
so scary. I only dealt with Siri before and now I have to deal with my phone too. But like
Yeah,
that's
Siri's
what I
like
mean.
fine.
It's scary because right now you're talking about the dialects and maybe like 3 months ago it was struggling with it. Maybe next month it's going to absolutely master it.
Yeah.
So it's not really a point of like, is it really capable of doing something or not? It kind of goes back into morals again. And
so
that's why it's
I have a
scary and
hypothetical
complicated.
that I think Yashi, you might be the most qualified to answer this,
Oh no.
but everyone can weigh in. So let's say I develop my own personal LLM, if you want to call it an AI, that's fine. It's offline. So the only input it's ever had is my own work. I feed it my stuff that I write. It has nothing to work off of but what I write, and it helps me expand my paragraphs, whatever. Does that still fall under the same gray area or danger zone of AI?
I'm gonna out myself here. I actually had to do that before for school.
This was actually inspired by a question or a comment that someone left on one of our different YouTube videos that he has an offline LLM. So I was just curious, like where do we does that fall into the same umbrella because it's only trained on your work?
So this is where it gets a little bit murky. Um, a lot of the anti-AI sentiment is coming from the fact that it is stealing content from other authors. Now, when something I've always had talked about in school was training our own AIs and just using it for ourselves, not training it on people like it's on our work. Um, the sentiment that I gathered from that, at least in my anti-AI classmates, is it's still ethically it's not there because we're just like, okay, so we're removing the work from ourselves and putting it onto this AI, and it doesn't feel like it's correct, but we all know that it is trained on our own stuff. And it's not being trained from out, it's not being influenced by outside stuff. It's primarily on us. So how is that wrong? I think at that point we talk about the ethics of getting or human creativity versus generated content. Like I think that's where it's gonna fall.
I will ask a question that if
Oh
I
no.
don't ask, someone in the comments will ask, just because, like, you are the person that knows the most about this than any of us. And I will come from the background that I know more than AI, which is art.
Yeah.
How is that different than you grabbing, or like me, for example, because I purchased them, like a her texture, scanning it and creating a brush that will help you draw hair in a more realistic way, and using that on your drawings. You're not doing the hair yourself the same way. Even a more simpler one, let's say I draw an eye and I convert it in a stamp and I use that brush to create the eyes for my characters. I made the eye, but I am not taking the time to draw the eye every single time. How is that different? And this is not like me taking a stand specifically, it's to kind of like extrapolate it to another medium to which like I have a little bit more knowledge from.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid. And believe it or not, Mary and I have these conversations literally all the time. Disclaimer, I nuked that AI I had to make for school. I, d I don't want that, but it's in a way, it took your own work to make that brush. In order to have it to function the way you want it. And yes, you can argue the same for my AI. If I used it for my own writing, I knew it was trained on my work and I knew the code by the on the back of my hand. Um, it isn't any different. But at the same time, I'm just coming from the point of, is it right for me to have technology do the heavy lifting for me at that point? Because when you're doing art, you're still putting yourself into that work. You're
Hmm.
still doing everything to make sure that is still you. When it comes to AI, even if it is built by myself, it's still taking away that spark from me. It's still taking some of this like this voice from me and making it its own. Because believe it or not, that AI still had a distinct tone, whereas I had another tone. I'm easy to just go from excitable in my text to completely serious or just depressed. The AI can't do that. Poor Tim is like, I already know this.
Yeah, but yeah, I know your mood based on how many things you send me on Instagram. So,
That is such a good way to gauge Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like
Yep.
the more unhinged, I'm like, she's not sleeping. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's just
We'll see how she's doing in a
yeah.
couple hours.
I
Well, I
only
think
had like
I
3 hours.
measure Yashie by the amount of plushy pictures she sends me.
I
By
haven't
um
all the
showed
long boys.
I haven't showed you my new and improved plushie wall yet, so
Hell yeah.
you'll get that soon.
I
But
feel
yeah.
like with art too, with like making brushes, the brush that you make is usually like you make it a stamp and you did the entire thing. Whereas when we're talking about AI, um, we're asking the computer to generate new things rather than a stamp, which is literally copying what you already drew. Um, and so I'm sure there are AI made brushes for art programs. But I think that, the dilemma that's very specific to AI is that it has so many gray areas that either you're either like in a bad spot, in a good spot, or in the gray area. And the in between is so in between that there is no in between. You're just kind of sitting there like, how do I really feel about this and how should I answer that question?
And um, I think Rosetta, you were the one who said it in one of the previous podcasts. I will hopefully be able to find it and link it up here. That we're so used to trusting technology for everything that we've just blindly put our faith in, like, all right, new cell phones, boom, yes, new laptop, boom, yes, new internet, boom, yes. Whatever new thing that rolls out, boom, yes. And this is the first time that there's really been like a fight against something new in the world of technology. Like everything else has just been adopted. We're like, Betamax, get the F out. VHS, get the F out. DVDs, get the F out. Blu-rays, sorry, you lasted for like a year and a half. Everything's streaming now. Um,
I'll have
Sad.
you know my family is still a DVD family and a Blu-ray family, but
my parent, my
that's how
parents still
we
have a
are.
bunch of DVDs, but
Actually,
a lot of that is also because I worked at Blockbuster for many years and
yeah,
they got
yeah.
discounted stuff. But
I my family still has VHSs.
oh yeah,
Our player is currently jammed, but we would use it when the player wasn't jammed.
yeah.
Well, yeah,
But
and I think because the development of that technology not only happened so quickly, but improved so fast, but it was all humans. Humans improved that. Sure, technology made it easier to improve on itself, but that was people. We said,
mhm.
oh, cool, somebody invented the DVD, right? Somebody invented the CD. I don't need a cassette player in my car anymore. I can put the CD in. And then went, oh, Bluetooth speakers are great. But people made that. With AI, it's sure people are making the AI, but what the AI is doing is improving itself. And so we're more skeptical of the AI because it's working within its own like systems, and not all of the progress it makes is made by people. So I feel like we trust people who make technology because they're people, and we understand that people, with more skill and technology can make better things than we can. But with AI, the AI is continuously improving. And I know that there are some people who fear that if an AI is like learning from itself, it's going to start like spewing, bigoted ideas, or it's going to put, you know, um, you know, other issues into itself and start having biases, which can be a bad thing. Like that's something that people tell me pretty often as part of their reason why they don't like AI. It's because it could just keep repeating the same stuff if it's not ever fed anything different.
I'm going to have to disagree there because when it comes to AI, yes, you're right that it is human made, but is it really human made? The problem is with the data is that that is completely human.
Yeah.
Um, the biases that come out completely human, and that is part of why we're afraid of AI. And a lot of this shift towards this anti-AI stance is coming from a place of where we don't feel in control anymore. We are so used to it. And now we're seeing this new technology that's like, I could change your life, blah, blah, blah. I can do all these things for you. Uh, and it's a big thing. I could even go on a rant on how other countries have adopted it, and we look like we're in the Stone Age. Anyways, I'm not. That could be for like our 101 talks, and I'm gonna be like, stupid. But when it comes to the biases, the content, everything, it is coming primarily from us, and it's not portraying us in a good light. And I feel like we're being forced to recognize that, and because of that, we're just like, uh, I'm not comfortable with that stuff. I don't want to be exposed to that anymore. It's this overwhelming sense of negativity that's turning us away.
So you think it's like maybe one of those things where it's like this technology's in the wrong hands and like people who have bad intentions are feeding the AI stuff more
It's
so
not
than the
even
AI like coming up with it itself.
correct, but it's not even just people with bad intentions. This is genuinely just a mistake. In history, uh, American history, for example, we have had so much discrimination, and that is in and somewhere I see it most is in our medical records.
Hmm.
In New York,
Yep.
Yeah.
especially New York City, they discriminate against you based on your zip code. I was in on that point, and AI picks up on that, and it will also discriminate against you on its zip code. This is a hypothetical, by the way. Um, just need to
Yep.
put that out there. But it was in medical records, it was fed to AI, and therefore AI continues the cycle of abuse that doctors had put out for years and years and years.
So let me pose this question because I don't think anyone here thinks that AI in whole is bad. And I know we come off that we're like, oh, AI is, we just kind of don't want Gen AI in our creative spaces. Do we think that AI was potentially just released to the world too soon? Should it have sat in the developments of was it OpenAI and whatever the other major AI companies are? I'm drawing a blank. Um, should it have sat in development for a few more years before being released? And obviously, we don't know exactly what would have happened, but in this hypothetical, do you think that would have put us in a better place for where we're at now?
I want to respond before Yashie responds because she probably has like more valid points.
No.
But I think my answer is no. And I think it's because I think just being in a bubble and having it just constrained to itself would have never given them the understanding of a lot of the things, the good, the bad, the ugly, that could happen once it was released to the world. I think even if it kept being under like polishing for 30 more years, we would still be seeing something very similar to what we are seeing right now, unfortunately, because it was just trapped in its own little thing. Maybe it would have had the opportunity to be trained in more ethical manners. Maybe, like could have happened, maybe no. I don't think so because billionaires suck. But realistically, I think it was bound to happen. Like at whatever point this was going to be released, it was just what was supposed to happen, unfortunately. And it's on the people's reaction to determine the future and like how ingrained it's going to be within our lives.
I actually have to agree with you, Bea.
Hey!
And I don't mean to say that actually in a condescending way. I'm so sorry. I say actually a lot.
No, 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 but like I got it
Okay.
because I said
Rude.
that maybe you were gonna disagree. I
No.
am not bullying you this time.
Oh my God, absolutely not. Here's the reality of AI and introducing it now. It is training on us, our prompts and what have you, in order to develop itself for the future. AI in this current moment is, as I've compared it before, a toddler. And that is the scariest comparison I could make. But
You don't even have kids.
I know.
Yeah, but have you been around toddlers? Most
Yes,
people
I
have. They are
True.
terrifying.
I
For the
actually
for the
worked in a
small
I'm
school.
time.
pretty sure Tim has been around both of his children when
Yep.
Yep.
they were toddlers.
Yep.
I worked in a school for a little while. So
That would do it.
AI now is comparable to a toddler. In the future, it's going to be more developed and hopefully in a better um position than it is now. However, I want to bring up a good way to look at it as well. When companies release things, they usually do it as open source as a way to build transparency and show you what their product currently looks like, and you help fix it for free. This is what we're looking at right now. This is open source, and we're developing it for free. A reason why I would say that I would have hoped that AI was held off for a few years is because it has exposed us for the capitalistic society we are. It became a symbol of that, and I don't think I really wanted it to be that. I've seen how other countries adopted it and it made their lives better, as well as introduce some like problems, but I don't think I wanted to see it dismantle society the way it has been right now. And that's just my take, my little ethics take. Um, Not a creative one.
That's fair.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking more about they could spend more time trying to figure out like safeguards and that kind of thing. But you are undoubtedly correct that yes, they are essentially using society to build their tool for them. So, all right, well, we've gotten way off course. But
It
I
was
think
fun.
I think the general consensus is we don't know what the majority of public thinks about AI written books. Potentially, they are more willing to accept them if they are cheap or free. However, there is still that very gray area of what is too much AI to use in a book. As the situation continues to develop, we'll continue to discuss, and maybe we will get some clarity as AI develops and AI in the creative world develops. Stop it. But in the meantime, publishers behaving badly. It's not you, it's them.